What's up, everybody? Welcome to Tesla Fix. Today it's the final day. This is the one. We are about to witness the 1010 event, and I have a very special person here in this interview to look at also the models of a Robotaxi. How could you calculate this? How much revenue could Tesla generate? And also we have a look at some bingo cards that you can also play. So make some screenshots before the event so you can really play the bingo, because it's very interesting what we have to offer here today. So let's just jump right in and see who's the guest today.
Welcome to Tesla Fix. Make sure to subscribe and like this episode.
It's almost like everybody saw the thumbnail. It's of course Cern Basher here again. And I'm very glad to have you on again, because we always do these nice deep dives you put out there, and you are modeling the business models of Tesla, and you're doing a lot of these calculations, having fun with variables that are not set in stone, kind of look how the model could work. So Cern, thank you very much for being here, and you're the best guest, I think, to have right before the event, kind of. Yeah.
Well, I'm very honored, and thank you for having me. This is really exciting. I think today we will be able to provide all of the answers that everybody is wondering about the event. So if they don't get a chance to watch the event, they should at least watch this video, because they will know.
It's way more exciting, this one here, and I'm not watching the event either, and Cern also doesn't watch it, of course. We're just gonna rewatch this episode, actually.
That's right.
So, yeah.
There's no disappointment with this video. Everything is as expected with this video.
Yeah, absolutely. And to the audience here, please write down what you expect. What's the number one thing you expect from the event? Please write it down in the comments below. It's of course for the algorithm as well. You know the deal. So Cern, let's just jump right into the episode, and maybe you gonna tell the people what you have to offer here, or what you brought with you, because you've brought nice slides.
I've brought a few slides, and I wanted to kind of just set the stage a little bit for everybody in terms of what Robotaxi means for Tesla. Right. Certainly, a lot of people may be aware that Tesla is developing autonomous vehicles, but what does it mean from a business opportunity perspective? So I just wanted to run through a few numbers there, just to give everybody a basic understanding of that, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. So I'm going to share them here right away, because this is the important stuff here.
Yeah, this is a little summary I put together a little while ago, and it shows for Tesla's different businesses what the profitability looks like for each one. So on the top row, we have autos, right? And if they sell a car, let's say for $45,000, that's a one-time sale. The energy content of a Tesla might be something like 85 kilowatt hours, right? And so in vehicle equivalents, one vehicle is one vehicle. This is what we're using as a base. And the profit then, let's say over a 5-year period, would be the profit from selling the car in year one, which let's say is $4,500. Let's assume then that people buy a car every 5 years. Now, that's probably not the case. People typically own cars for longer than that, right? But this for this analysis, we'll assume that Tesla gets to sell a car once every 5 years to each person that buys one. Okay, so that's the base. We're now going to compare everything to autos. So a Tesla Semi, which is a vehicle that was just showcased in Europe not too long ago, that I think a lot of people are excited about.
Absolutely, yeah. It's important for the European market, actually, the trucks, of course. And they are were praised, really. So this one also is just as a, sorry that I interrupt here, but I think it's important. The Semi actually is kind of a Trojan horse for the German market to have a better brand perception of Tesla, because it was hurt a bit, because Legacy Auto is really pushing against it, and and also people don't like Elon Musk, of course, as always. Yeah,
sure, and we have some of that problem here in the U.S. as well. Mm-hmm. But the Semi, let's say, for example, the Semi is sold for $250,000. Now, we don't actually know yet what they'll sell the Semi for, but actually it could easily be this, if not more. I've done some work that shows that they could easily sell it for 350 and it would still be a good deal. But let's say they sell it for 250. The energy content there is about 900 kilowatt hours in a battery pack. So the number of vehicle equivalents, 0.09, in terms of, I guess I should have expressed this the other way. How many vehicles in a semi? About 10.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The 5-year profit then is 27,500. Right. And in a per vehicle equivalent, that is $2,500. So that's where the 0.09 comes in. So when they sell one semi, they make 27,500, but in vehicle equivalents, that's only about $2,600. So just selling a semi on the surface of it may look to be a little bit less profitable than selling a vehicle. Now, semis obviously will last a lot more than 5 years, and there's a lot of other opportunities associated with them. One of them is the next line, autos with FSD. So this applies to cars and semi. Here I'm showing it for the cars.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, they sell a vehicle, and then they also sell FSD that's supervised, which unfortunately is not in Europe yet, and I hope that it is there soon because it's amazing.
Don't remind me.
Yeah, sorry to press a pain point for you.
Absolutely.
But let's say this doubles then the profitability of a Tesla vehicle because it's a sale of a vehicle plus software for 5 years. So a car with FSD doubles the profitability for Tesla, which is a really nice improvement. There are not many businesses that get the opportunity to double the amount of profit they get from selling a product, right, without raising prices. In this case, they're not raising prices, they're providing an additional service. Now, the other part of Tesla's business that we're excited about lately is Tesla Energy, selling these large $1 million megapacks that has an energy content of 3,900 kilowatt hours or 3.9 megawatt hours. The profitability on that might be $150,000. And on a per vehicle equivalent, that's equivalent to about $13,000 per vehicle. So it's worth about 3 times as much in profit terms as selling a car. Okay. So that's attractive.
Very much.
Okay.
And very overlooked as well. I mean, this one is like we said, we talked about this when we modeled or you modeled the Robotaxi, the Tesla bot, and then the future products as well. And then we haven't even talked about the energy sector so much. So, but yeah, that's the big one.
Awesome. And it's also true that semi and energy actually kind of go hand in hand.
Absolutely, yeah.
So even though the profitability of selling a particular truck might not be as attractive as selling vehicles, add Tesla Energy to it, and suddenly you might be comparable. Okay. All right. The good news is this is not all. What we're talking about now is a world of autonomous vehicles and autonomous robots. And let me just show you what the profitability of those look like. If you go to the next slide. So adding in the bottom 2 rows, Robotaxi. So what we're talking about now is not selling a vehicle, but building a vehicle, putting it in Tesla's own fleet, and earning recurring revenue on that. Now, it's highly debatable about how much recurring revenue Tesla will get. We saw a report from Morgan Stanley this past week that was showing about $105,000 of recurring revenue for a vehicle. On this table, I'm showing $62,000.
Mm-hmm.
So, who knows exactly how much it will be. And of course, it will change over time as the market expands. The prices will come down. But let's assume it's $62,000. Mm-hmm. Let's assume that the energy content of a Robotaxi is a little bit less because it's probably a smaller vehicle, or at least one of them will be a smaller vehicle. And because it's reoccurring, the 5-year profit now is about $124,000 over a 5-year period. And adjusting for the per vehicle equivalents, it's about $140,000. So it's a mere 31 times as much profit from a Robotaxi over a 5-year period than it would be to sell a vehicle. How many businesses can you think of that have the opportunity to 31x the profit by adding software to something, right? It's an incredible opportunity.
Amazing, yeah.
And again, I think these numbers are actually pretty conservative. What we're talking about actually with Robotaxi is more of a platform to layer on additional services. It's not just about giving rides, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. The other one, though, that also is very important to keep in mind, as much as we're excited about this Robotaxi event or this We Robot event, is actually the humanoid robots themselves.
Yes.
And we're hoping that they play a role in the event. But here, the economics are actually pretty staggering. If the recurring revenue on a bot is $32,000 a year, which I believe is pretty conservative, the equivalent in per vehicle terms is about $4.2 million because the bots use very, very little batteries relative to a car. They actually have about 3% of the energy inside a robot than the vehicle does.
Yeah.
They also weigh about 3% of a Tesla Model 3. So there's about 37 bots per vehicle. Right. So this is the opportunity for Tesla long term.
Yeah.
Okay,
It
so
makes
let's
a lot
not
of
lose
sense.
sight of that as we begin to talk about the robotaxis. Just keep in the back of your mind that Tesla has another ace up their sleeves for the future.
And also something to note here as well is that the robots actually could have even, let's say, 3 battery packs to hot swap them or whatever, or swapping them out, or just induction charging through the feed. We've discussed some ideas, but yeah, or even they're just charged. I mean, we've talked about also, like in the last episode you were on, about how to utilize the bots if they just worked 4 hours or 8 hours or in shifts, kind of when you have 3 bots and 3 shifts and stuff like this to recharge again. And yeah, but I mean, it's insane. Yeah, please go on. It's just, it just always amazes me. I love these models. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm 100% certain that my numbers are wrong here. But even if they're wrong by half, it's still an incredible, unbelievable opportunity for Tesla.
Yeah.
Even if it's only 10% of what I'm showing here, it's still an incredible opportunity for Tesla.
Well, yeah, 10% of 4 million is pretty good. Or
right. So yeah. So just keep in mind these are directional at this point, but the opportunity is pretty enormous. Also, you can have a lot more bots in the world than you can vehicles. So that's also a factor that makes the humanoid bot opportunity just like nothing we've ever seen before. Anyway, the final comment on bots is on the next slide, and then we'll move on to the Robotaxi event. I like to think of Tesla in terms of bot equivalents. And with this latest production and delivery report that we had on October 2nd, Tesla has essentially now made about 76 million bot equivalents over the last 12 months. How do I calculate that? Well, I take a look at the energy content of the autos and the energy content of megapacks and power walls, and I calculate how many bots that would be if those batteries were put into bots instead of cars or megapacks. So in this way, Tesla is already manufacturing bots. They're not humanoid bots yet, but just to show people the scale that Tesla is already operating at as far as batteries.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah.
All right. Let's shift to the Robotaxi network and let's kind of build up just an understanding of some of the basics, and we can go from there. One of the key things to think about, Jan, is the idea of utilization for vehicles. When you put a vehicle in the Robotaxi network, as much as you would like that vehicle to be earning revenue for 24 hours, it is not possible for 2 reasons. One is people sleep. There's not very much demand for vehicles at 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Right? Relative to 3 o'clock in the day, for example, or morning rush hour, evening rush hour. So there's a lot of sort of lumpiness in a 24-hour period. Also, the vehicles themselves need to be charged. So the vehicles themselves call for some downtime. Now, ideally, the downtime of a vehicle should coincide with the downtime of humans, so you can charge them while people are sleeping. That would be ideal. The other thing you need to think about is, in order for a customer to have a great experience, when I hit that button on the app that says I want to summon a Robotaxi, I want the vehicle to show up as quickly as possible. And in order to do that, the vehicle needs to be as close as possible to me. So in order to do that, they have to have sort of a large number of vehicles that are just sitting around waiting. So we get into this concept of utilization. How many hours a day could a vehicle be actually moving about and earning revenue?
Mm-hmm.
So if you just show this next chart, I just want to share with you here that I've graphed out various utilization rates from 30% to 60%, 65%. What does this mean? Well, 30% means if the vehicle's used 30% of a 24-hour day, then 7.2 hours a day, the vehicle is moving with a passenger inside, or moving to go get a passenger,
Mm-hmm.
or waiting for passengers to get in and out of the vehicle. That's being utilized 30% of the time, and that's 7.2 hours a day. The rest of the time, the vehicle is doing absolutely nothing.
Yep.
Just parked. Which, by the way, this utilization would be improvement over most individually owned vehicles. You and I don't utilize our vehicles 30% of the day.
Yeah, that's
Right.
true. I mean, I go
Virtually
to
no one does.
work, commute to work, and then it's parked there. It could
Yep.
Earn a boatload of money, I can tell you in that time. Yeah.
Right. So from an individual perspective, individual vehicle perspective, you want the utilization to be as high as possible. But from a customer experience perspective, I want a vehicle to be there now. And therefore, the Robotaxi network will probably want to be optimized for relatively low utilization rates so that it can respond to peak periods of demand. Right? So there's at least a vehicle available in peak, and then when it's not peak, the vehicle is available quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? This is kind of the big challenge in optimizing the Robotaxi network.
Yeah, but now I have an idea. I don't know if you're coming to this point, but I wanted to mention this here. I think it's a good idea kind of we have the auto bidder software, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it buys and sells at the right time, kind of.
Yes.
So when prices are high, it sells. When prices are low, it buys energy sometimes or whatever. So what about you get a notification on your app? My car is parked right now at my work, and I get a notification from the Tesla app. Hey, you can earn double the price now if you now utilize your car as a Robotaxi. And bada boom, I'm going to send it out because now it makes sense.
Yes.
Something like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what we're focused on here today actually is the Tesla-owned Robotaxi network.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hopeful, and many others are hopeful, that they can put their own vehicles in the network and earn some money.
Yep.
So yes, that would be exciting.
Mm-hmm.
There also may be a potential long-term to use your vehicle too as that backup source of energy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? It may actually make you more by providing energy to the grid than it would be giving rides to people.
Yeah, that's actually true. I was thinking about the Cybertruck in that way because battery storage is so expensive, but it's not as much as a Cybertruck. So kind of it's in the ballpark. I mean, it's maybe a little bit more than the storage, but still, you have a vehicle attached to your battery storage. You could have multiple Cybertrucks standing around for.
Yeah, the Cybertruck is something like 8 or 9 Powerwalls.
Yeah.
Powerwall with wheels that you can actually take somewhere. They're not just attached to a wall.
It's so funny to look at it, but it is like that. I would if I had like this kind of system at home, I would buy a Cybertruck just for that. But of course, it maybe needs to have just a little or be adapted a little bit. But I can see a car that's even utilizing this bidirectional charging even more. I can see that really.
Yeah, I think long-term, that's an interesting opportunity. I know that there are a lot of utilities that don't allow you to sell energy back to them and that kind of thing. So there's all kinds of issues to work out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, long-term, I think that's an interesting potential revenue opportunity.
And
for
don't forget, like the cool thing is the smart grids actually that you have you don't have an energy provider at some point and suddenly it's just neighbor to neighbor in your neighborhood, and then totally makes sense. Yeah, a lot of opportunities with energy, but that's a whole own topic.
Yeah. So let's translate now what 30% utilization means in terms of miles per day. And I'm sorry I haven't converted this to kilometers, but I'm sure your viewers are used to doing that.
My audience is American, so I have the troubles here, but that is I'm the only one who's confused.
There you go. So on the next slide, you can see that 30% utilization equates to about 164 miles a day of movement of the vehicle. Now, it's not all 164 miles do you earn revenue, because some of those miles, the vehicle is repositioning itself from the drop-off point to a pickup point for the next person. Okay. So it works out to about 20 trips a day if the average trip's about 5 miles long and the vehicle is traveling at 25 miles an hour. Right. Now, it's highly dependent on the urban environment that it's operating in. Where I live, it's not a particularly dense urban environment. The speed is probably faster, but also the distance is probably longer. So just working with average numbers here, it'd be about 20 trips a day if they're 5 miles long.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you can see on up to 65% utilization, it's like 355 miles a day, 42 trips. The interesting thing about the lower utilizations is you wouldn't need to charge the vehicle during the day. 165 miles is plenty of range for an average Tesla. Right? Even 191, 220, and 245, no problem. The Tesla vehicles could do that in a given day and charge at night. Okay?
Yeah.
It's not until you get up to the high utilizations do you maybe need to charge during the day at some point. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So let's look at the components of revenue. When you offer Robotaxi network, there's probably going to be some different components to how they charge for the fares, right? If you are asking a car to come to you, there should be some initial price that you have to pay just to step into the vehicle.
Yeah.
Because that vehicle has already incurred some cost to come to you.
Sure.
So I'm calling that like a base rate.
Yeah, that's the same with those electric scooters here in Germany, and also like you also have them there, Lime scooters or whatever they're called, different that they always have a unlock fee, and you unlock them, and then or you reserve them, then you have a reserving fee and stuff like that.
Because there's probably also some scenarios where people get in the vehicle and then immediately step out because something has changed.
Absolutely. Sure.
Right. They have to go back for whatever reason. So you should still pay something for that because you've taken an asset, off of somebody else, and it's taken some time away from earning money. Another component, obviously, is the distance that you travel. Right. And so the further you go, the more you should pay. And that's the component of fare that most people focus on. Oh, what's the cost per mile? So in a short trip, the cost per mile might look really high because that base fare is the bigger component. But for a longer trip, if you take a 100-mile trip, then the cost per mile should be very low. Right? And the base fare as a percentage of the total would be pretty small. The third part, I think, which is also very important that I don't really hear anybody talking about, is the cost of idle time. What happens if it takes you 10 minutes to load the vehicle? Or when you get to your destination, you've fallen asleep.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Does the vehicle try to kick you out? How?
we talked about this the last time too. That
right.
There's a funny scenario that you could rent the Tesla to rest or whatever, and then you have like these same like those fees that you have in the supercharger when you just keeping parked and having it plugged in. Yeah.
That's right. And in that case, it gets very expensive. In my models, I've assumed that the idle costs are the same as if the vehicle was moving at that average speed of 25 miles an hour, what the vehicle would make over a certain time period. But yeah, they could actually make that more expensive. Although in the case of somebody, coming home, maybe they drank too much.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a bad idea just to kind of let them sleep it off for a while.
Yep.
Right. And if it's at a low period of demand, like 4 o'clock in the morning, let them sleep at a low cost. The vehicle wouldn't make any money anyway. Just let them sleep in the vehicle. Now they might have to pay a cleaning fee afterwards, but yeah, those are issues to be worked out.
Yeah.
So graphically, that's on the next page. Is in terms of what I was talking about, the three components of the revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the fare revenue or the trip revenue. Take a look at the next page.
Mm-hmm.
And this, this is how that would look at different utilizations if the cost per mile was $1 down to 45 cents per mile. So, excuse me, in a situation where the utilization rate's going up,
Mm-hmm.
you could probably actually afford to charge a lower rate per mile.
Yes.
And so you can just see that the revenue per vehicle per day can be held pretty constant. You would just need to adjust the cost per mile as the utilization rate goes up. So there's a whole lot of variables. I guess I'm just trying to show there's a whole lot of variables in terms of optimizing the Robotaxi fleet. There's a lot of different levers that a company could pull to maximize revenue versus provide the optimal experience for customers.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Trip revenue, though, is not the only thing. There's also opportunity to earn more revenue than just providing rides to people. And Jan, if you go to the next slide, this is some attempt, at least just to visualize this. I don't think these bars are the right numbers, but I just putting them in here so people can see. Clearly, there's an opportunity to advertise to people.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
All these cars are going to have screens. There could be some advertisement if Tesla decided to do that. Also, if they wanted to, they could sell advertisements as a wrap around the car. They could be traveling billboards in that sense, just like buses are today, right? They have advertisements on many buses.
Yeah.
You could also offer what I call curated experiences. Right. I travel to a city I've never been to before. The car talks to me. It's got grok in the vehicle.
Yeah.
And it gives me a tour of the city.
Yeah.
And along the way, I get hungry and I say, you know what? I would really love a good, Italian restaurant. Can you recommend one to me? And it takes you there. In that sense, Tesla might actually earn a referral fee from the restaurant for bringing customers to certain restaurants.
Yeah. And we talked about this too, that Google actually adapted some of this already, that they say in their navigation, even the name, go left by the Chick-fil-A, and they say Chick-fil-A, so something like that. So this is actually already in the works, kind of to have advertisements in the navigation, even and it's very subtle. But you hear the name.
So thanks to you. Now I need to have a chicken sandwich for lunch because you mentioned that to me. Yeah.
Yeah. And sadly, we don't have Chick-fil-A in Germany. Oh, Jesus, I'm hurting myself. And I never tried it, actually. And I was in the US. It's an atrocity that I didn't do that.
You have to come back. You have to save something.
Yeah, I have, but I had In-N-Out Burger at least.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
So there's also other potential revenue sources, right? Entertainment in the vehicle, connectivity in the vehicle. There's also a couple other revenue sources not tied to giving rides. One is distributed inference. So when the vehicle is parked, you can use the computing power, in theory, in the vehicle, and Elon has talked about this, to process AI requests.
Yep.
I don't know how much revenue that could generate, probably not a whole lot, but it could be something. And collectively, the network itself could be a huge, a colossal computer, essentially. Another thing that may be more interesting is when the vehicle is not being utilized, it can be used for deliveries.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a delivery revenue component to this as well that's actually not pictured on this chart. So just keep that in mind. When people are talking about the economics of robotaxis, they're typically only talking about the fare revenue and they forget all the other stuff.
It's not enough. Yeah, absolutely. It's not enough. I mean, you could really imagine this ride is sponsored by McDonald's, and then you just drive off, and then maybe the fare is less, or you have a certain event happening then and there, and then you get, like, the cars get an over-the-air update that they are just as a ride share for this kind of event, and then it's sponsored by this event or something like that. Something like that could be. I mean, you could really go crazy with this, and I also think, like, of course, sending out food, and now we have this McDonald's like kind of stepping in with the 10-10 McDonald's thing, and they offer deliveries also, and this could also be shown in the next couple of hours. So, or it was just a marketing gig from them to, get the marketing up a little bit and get viral like they did. And we are talking about McDonald's now. Yeah.
Yes, it's possible that McDonald's used this as like a guerrilla marketing campaign. They saw an opportunity. Yeah.
Maybe, but we will see. Maybe a Tesla bot with a McDonald's, with the
McDonald's would be very smart to do so if they did that. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Another thing too that's not on here is in-car snacks and drinks.
Yeah.
If you have a Robotaxi and there's no steering wheel and so on, now you've got some space to put like a mini fridge in there somewhere.
Yeah. That unlocks when you pay or something like that. Yeah. You could really think about many things.
Right. And in Germany, there'd be beer in the car, right? So that would be great.
Yeah, of course. It's a rolling brewery, of course.
Exactly.
It's fresh, even like a freshly brewed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, so that's important just to keep in mind that there's different sources of revenue. So let's just take a look real quick with the Morgan Stanley numbers that came out on the next page. They made some projections where the revenue per car is $105,000. This is in year 2030. And working through their list of expenses, they come out to profits of about $15,000 per car per year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my model is a little different than theirs, and I'm showing that on the right side. I'm using their same revenue number just to make it comparable. But when you look at the expenses that I have, I get to a net profit of more like $47,000 per vehicle. Now, obviously, there's a wide range there, and on Herbert's show, I talked about some of these differences in detail, so I won't get into that here today.
Okay.
But either way,
I'm going to link the video. Very important. I'm going to link the video over here, and you can watch that after this video if you have time. But the Robotaxi event, guys, sorry.
Yep.
Maybe tomorrow, but go on, sir.
Yeah. So whether the profit is $15,000 per vehicle per year or $47,000, it doesn't matter. If you go back to don't actually go back to the chart, but if you recall from our first chart where the vehicle makes $4,500 a year, the Robotaxi in Morgan Stanley's model is 3 times the amount of profit that Tesla would earn once in a 5-year period.
Yeah.
So it's a 15x improvement because it's 5 years times 3, right? Yeah. So this to me is the most conservative model I've seen, and it's still a 15x improvement in the profitability of essentially selling a Tesla vehicle.
Yeah, this is big because cars lose value immediately when they drive off the lot, of course, Teslas too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Now, let's shift a little bit to thinking about now how many Robotaxis there needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'd like to do is kind of show you the most optimistic scenario in a world where everything becomes autonomous.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's kind of crazy at this point to imagine that. And I think it would be at least a couple of decades before that's even possible or likely. Are we going to have autonomous police cars and fire trucks? Maybe. But I think it'll be a while before any of that ever happens. But let's just go with the assumption that everything becomes autonomous one day, because that's just the most efficient way to operate a vehicle, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the United States, if you flip to the next chart, Jan, there's about 3.3 trillion miles traveled every year in the US. 3.3 trillion. It's an incredible amount of mileage, right?
Yeah.
But the average person, the average vehicle is only traveling about 12,000 miles a year.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's 275 million vehicles in the US. It's unbelievable to imagine that many vehicles. So
that's insane. Yeah.
If we assume that all of the 3.3 trillion miles are covered by an autonomous vehicle, then we can calculate how many vehicles we need.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have to figure out utilization. This comes back to this utilization question again. At 30% utilization, you need about 54 million vehicles just for the US. Mm-hmm. If the utilization is 65%, then you could get away with 25 million vehicles. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So let's just stick with 30% utilization, the most conservative one. You would need 54 million vehicles, which is only 20% of the current fleet. We can get rid of 80% of the vehicles, right? And only have 54 million left. Now, that assumes all vehicles do the same thing. Obviously, we can't get rid of, 80% of the fire trucks. But in total, they're a pretty small number, out of the 275 million vehicles. Now, let's say that this opportunity is only really in urban areas. So you apply that math, you're looking at about 37 million vehicles needed just to replace all vehicles in urban areas. Because urban miles in the U.S. is about 2/3 of the total.
Wow. Yeah.
Probably similar in other places, probably similar numbers in Europe. Right?
Could be. Yeah.
Now,
of course, where the areas are more dense, more people, that means more commute, more vehicles.
Yeah.
But it may be less even in Germany or in Europe on the whole, because we have more public transport, if that makes sense, kind of.
Maybe.
But yeah.
But let's imagine a world where now the cost and the convenience of a robotaxi is even cheaper than public transport.
Yeah.
Right. And so what would happen likely, particularly here in the US, is the number of miles would go up, let's say from 3.3 trillion. If you just flip to the next page, to 5 trillion. Right.
Yep.
Anytime you drive down the price of something, typically people demand more of it.
Sure.
Right. To a point. Like if ice cream becomes cheap, then people consume more ice cream. Right.
Yeah, I will.
Right. To a point. Right. There's a limit, but yes. So in that case, right. Perhaps not. Yeah. Running the same numbers, then we get to a fleet size of 84 million to replace all miles at 30% utilization, or a fleet size of 57 million if it's just urban miles. What I'm trying to show here in a very rough, crude way is that the number of robotaxis needed in the United States ranges from 37 million up to 83 million, depending on your assumptions. It's a pretty phenomenal number of vehicles. So that's kind of the upper bound in terms of how big Tesla's robotaxi business could ultimately be here in the US.
So a production rate of 10 million doesn't sound so crazy and per year, and then a production rate of 20 million makes much more sense now. Hearing
if we're
these
talking
numbers.
Globally,
Yeah.
Globally, it's my understanding there's a couple of billion vehicles in the world.
Yeah.
So it's going to take a while to replace them all with autonomous vehicles.
Sure.
But yeah. Okay, so this is bigger picture, longer term, but just to give folks some basic understanding of how big this market could be for the number of vehicles. And we saw just a minute ago the profitability potential per vehicle, even if it's only $10,000 per year, you multiply that by 50 million vehicles, it's a big number. Right? Or 100 million vehicles for the world, or something like that, or a couple 100 million. Okay. The next page is just a graphical image of kind of what we're showing on the previous pages in terms of as the utilization goes up, you need less vehicles. I think that's a pretty obvious concept. The more frequently the vehicle's used, it means you wouldn't need as many to satisfy the demand.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so we can skip through that. This one, I'm adding the total profit of the Robotaxi network. So what I'm trying to show here is that the network profitability actually really isn't harmed or helped too much when utilization goes up. Or hurt too much if utilization comes down. There's things they can do to optimize profit at different levels of utilization. Utilization is really more about the customer experience.
Yeah.
And that's going to be very important. We want to make sure that people have a great experience when using Robotaxi, and we don't want to make them wait, very, very long. Except under certain circumstances where everybody's at a concert and they all leave at once. That's a challenging demand situation to deal with.
And what's also interesting is that depending on how much compute the servers have and how big you could calculate stuff like this. But we have, for example, in the Teslas, of course, that you get in and it shows you at the right time the location you might go to. So, for example, for me, on Tuesdays, I go to tennis. So it's going to show me the tennis place where I go. So this thing could also happen on average around this date, there is a bulk of people here that needs to be serviced. So it could prepare for this as well, and kind of utilize that. Or for Saturdays, it knows that in that
Yes.
area we have a bulk. But I mean, I don't know how far you could go with automating stuff like this, but I think you could do it. But I mean, thinking about that in a city where you have multiples of those places, it gets very complicated fast. But this could work, I think, in the long run, maybe.
No, I
someday,
think that's
but
critical because in the case of a concert where, let's say, there's 50,000 people at a venue,
yeah,
it's not like that concert springs up out of nowhere. That's scheduled in advance. So that gives
exactly.
Tesla an opportunity to schedule and pre-position vehicles for that concert. Initially, vehicles in the outlying areas to bring people in, and then pre-position the vehicles at the concert to take people away. That shouldn't be a difficult thing to figure out. What you're talking about is more of the Robotaxi network knowing your own schedule. And I think actually that's an opportunity for Tesla where if they get you to subscribe to the network and they link your calendar in, then they know exactly in advance what you're likely to need.
Oh, Jesus. Then it just comes at the right time.
It kind of would just show up. Wouldn't that be magical?
Whoa, that would be, wow, that's so touchless. It's really touchless. You don't have to do anything, but a mysterious entity just guides you through your life.
You walk outside with your tennis racket and the Robotaxis are waiting for you.
That's true. That could really much be. But I find it so interesting because also the data that also Google gathers, you know that the frequency that something is visited, because they notice that everybody is in the same Wi-Fi at that location at the right time. So they see, oh, now it's more than usual or less than usual. I mean, also Tesla could link it to that data stream maybe. I assume that there is maybe
they might have their own source of data at that point.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. But that's interesting to see that. I mean, Tesla partnering with Google and sharing data would be immensely crazy.
Yeah.
But who knows? But also Tesla has a lot of going for them as well, because they already have also these kinds of things with the car, in car at least. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's lots of opportunities there. Let's get to the fun stuff, which is this Robotaxi event.
Yeah.
So a few days ago, you and Herbert had a discussion around this bingo chart, and I apologize. I made a massive, massive error, but I've corrected it here.
Yeah.
I didn't include Starlink integration, which is probably one of the most important, exciting things.
Exactly.
So I corrected it, and I've added your logo as a thank you for helping me fix the bingo card.
Yay! So to all the people that making screenshots right now from this bingo card, because you will need that later, please make it so you see Cern Basher. We have to give him always credit. So the guy who always takes screenshots in this video, include his name all the time and mention him when you share it, please. That's very important for me, because this is very fun, and you've did a lot of stuff, a lot of cards. I mean, that's not the only card you brought, but I know what is
fun. And since you discussed this one at length with Herbert, let's not go through this box by box. You've already done that, and that was a great episode. I would encourage people to take a look at that one from a few days ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Linked, of course, here too.
Yeah. Let's look at the next screen, though, where kind of in a table format, I've listed out some of the things. And what I did here was I canvassed the community on X for what they expect or hope to see during the presentation. And I created a list here, and I selected some of these and put it on my bingo card, but there's a lot more that didn't make the card. So I just wanted to share them all here. Again, we don't need to go through this entire list, but it ranges from all kinds of different vehicle types: a 2-seater, a 3-seater, 4, 5-seater, 6-seater, and somebody even suggested that they call it Auto 2, which tells you how many seats. Auto 3 is 3 seats. So that could be an interesting nomenclature in terms of telling people what vehicles are available. There's this whole notion, and you and Herbert discussed this, about whether or not we'll see a supervised Robotaxi network, which I'm calling Drive. There'll be a driver, versus an autonomous one, which I'm calling Auto, where it's a driverless Robotaxi network. There's a great debate about whether we'll see a supervised one or not. My sense is that because I feel that FSD isn't quite ready yet to be fully autonomous, that
Yeah.
if they wanted to go that route, that wouldn't surprise me. The negative with that is why build up that infrastructure if it's going to be very temporary?
Exactly. But
Right.
what I could also see, I'm not sure if anybody talked about this or if that makes sense, or I'm just a little bit stupid here. But what if you just call for a car and you are the supervisor? So you need to have an ID to let it operate, but you are supervising it. So you don't need a supervisor inside of the car, which also is kind of a hybrid. So it's the same. It's almost like S that they rolled out, but just with longer distance. So it drives towards you. So it is a Robotaxi, gets to you, and then you supervise it when it picks you up. But then it's unsupervised going to you. So this doesn't make sense. So, okay, that's maybe not.
But yeah, but that actually is a very interesting idea. Mm-hmm. You're right. The issue is unsupervised getting to the customer.
It has to drive to you. So yeah.
But certainly a very interesting possibility. Yeah, there's some issues to work through there. But I have not heard anybody ever mention that before. It's an interesting idea. Kind of like it.
Maybe it just is an airdrop. It just airplane comes and just drops off.
That would be great.
That makes yeah, that would be nice, but very unsensible. But hey,
yeah,
we're having fun here.
So I would like to hear about launch date and rollout locations and partner announcements and the economics of the network. That would really interest me. And obviously, there's people that want updates on a whole bunch of other things like Dojo and 4680 batteries and that kind of stuff. This is more of a wish list.
Rocket vehicle, I think, makes absolutely sense because then they just. I've already put out this video, hopefully. Yeah, I did. So it's about that we have the different scenarios that you go into the car, the doors open up automatically, and then Grok greets you and says, "Hey, which location you want to go?" And then you just tell him. And then
Grok already knows. Grok knows where you want to go.
Well, yeah, sure, because you gave it the information before, but also like asking you. So voice input makes a lot of sense, and I think, I think this could also be a possibility because it's, I think, nearer than we think, and also like we could see also the Tesla bot having an interface with voice, kind of voice interface.
I also think that Grok actually also maybe allows FSD to take a little bit of a step change because as a rider, then you can give Grok feedback.
Oh yeah.
And
slow there, buddy. Yeah, and then
you can give the car feedback and you can tell it certain things and get it to do something that it might not otherwise do. So that's the first page. There's a second page of this, Jan. If you go to the next slide, other vehicles, Optimus updates. And as you mentioned, self-open and closed doors. Yeah. But other ideas like paintless designs, details about how the insurance situation is going to work, shared ride options for people that want to share a ride with somebody. Seats that rotate, and I think Herbert talked about this. You're sitting facing backwards.
Yeah, it makes also sense for the four-seater, or that you have a hidden seats. You also talked about that, but I think a four-seater makes way more sense in that regard. Yeah.
Some people have even suggested that they could have fixed routes that can go live, where it's almost like a bus line where you know the route, and it's a route that's been proven that the Robotaxi works flawlessly every time, kind of thing. There's your Starlink built into vehicles.
Yay!
Some have even suggested that FSD sales could end. That would only be subscription service going forward, etc. So there's a big wish list of things. I think it tells me that expectations are all over the place for the event.
Yeah.
So no doubt there'll be some people that will be disappointed because their wish list item is not discussed. Like a flying roadster. Wouldn't that be cool? But how likely is that? It's probably fairly unlikely at this stage.
They will have their own event for the roadster. In no way they will show that there. It would be like they could do a whole event around this thing.
That's right. And they need to make sure that everybody that's paid the money that they have up front for the reservation for the roadster is at that event.
Exactly. That's true. That's true. And since they didn't invite me, This means they don't show it because obviously I
go.
bought one. No, I wish.
There you go.
But yeah, but one thing, people will be disappointed to Tesla because they didn't invent time travel. What? I thought they will showcase this soon.
That's right.
I'm so disappointed.
Yes, I would be too if that
Legacy
that's
Auto is
announced.
way better.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's the list, and then I feel
Mm-hmm.
that there are some important questions to address, and there's more than this. But number one, how will the issue of people impeding progress of robotaxis by standing in front of them be handled? People don't typically do this when it's a driver in a car, but we've seen this behavior when it's a driverless vehicle. They feel like they can just stand in front of the vehicle and harass whoever's inside.
Yeah.
So, we'll have to see how that's dealt with. You could make the windows tinted so you couldn't see who's inside. That might help.
Yep.
There are, you could obviously call the police. Everything's being recorded. The vehicle could emit a high-pitched sound that would make it painful to stand next to. Would be one way to deal with it.
Yeah.
But if you live in a city and that's going off all the time, the neighbors might be upset to hear that noise all the time. So there's issues with that. So who knows what the answer is there. But I think that's something that needs to be thought through.
Absolutely. I've tested the Waymo in San Francisco. Omar from Home Ascalog just sent me one, and suddenly it appeared. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get in. And then hello, Omar. Yeah. And then I went in. But that situation actually happened. So the car was slowing down, and then somebody who just walked up to the car, but it still drove off before the guy could reach the car. But obviously, some people just don't like these things or just harass these things. And yeah,
there was a video that I saw recently. There was a woman in a Waymo, and a couple of guys apparently wanted to get her phone number. And they stood in front of the car saying, give us your number and, we'll leave. And she's like, go away. And they wouldn't for a while. They stood there for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of harassment, there needs to be something to try to deal with that.
Yeah.
Now, of course, that can happen in a human-driven car too, but it doesn't seem to as much. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Parents with kids, how is the car seat situation going to be handled? If you have 3 kids, you can't carry around 3 car seats. Now, car seats, I guess, could be in the Robotaxi, or you could hail a kid-ready Robotaxi. That's another solution. Yeah. And maybe they don't need car seats at all. Elon has talked about an airbag system where you wouldn't even need seatbelts or seats or car seats for kids.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
Right. The airbags deploy all around you, and that would be just as safe as having a seatbelt. Now, that might involve some changes in laws.
Sure.
And that's possible over time, but that wouldn't be something that would be available now. How will robotaxis work for people with disabilities, particularly wheelchairs? Now, again, you don't need every vehicle to be wheelchair capable. You just need a few. But that's an important thing to address, I think, ultimately. This is a minor one. If I have a group of people, can I hail more than one robotaxi at a time? Yeah. There's a group of 15 of us or something, right? Can we, right? Or are we all kind of on our own and, we have to hail, 4 of them and divvy it up somehow?
But it makes sense also that you're the one with the Tesla app and the other ones don't have one, for example. The same with the Line scooters, for example. It's the same. You can unlock for your friends kind of over your account. I think 3 or something like that. And then it's utilized. And of course, it's an interesting idea that they ride in a kind of train then. It's a small robotaxi train and
kind of convoy along. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
The cleaning, right? Cleaning is one thing, but how do you hold people accountable, particularly in situations where the mess is kind of unavoidable? People spill coffee. I mean, that's not intentional. Kids are just messier. Like my kids destroy the inside of my vehicles with, stuff. So you have to distinguish between intentional, and avoidable messes with the unintentional and unavoidable messes. Now, clearly, they know who is in the vehicle. They know from the app who the customer is. So there's some recourse in terms of charging people if it's found that the mess was intentional and was costly to fix, costly to clean. But I'd just be curious to hear about how they plan to deal with this. And then for existing Tesla vehicles, if individuals are able to add their vehicle to the network, what happens if the passengers don't close the doors? It's raining and my vehicle's in the network and suddenly the door's been left open. How are we going to deal with that?
I know how. It just goes into ludicrous mode and suddenly accelerates that the door closes and stops immediately. That would be
that could be very effective. Yeah.
Yeah, and very pricey when you hit somebody or something. Yeah.
Yeah, your vehicle may come back with no doors.
Exactly.
Problem solved. And then the other thing that's not on here is kind of the insurance situation and who's accepting liability for what. I think that's kind of a big question to be answered. But we will know the answers to all these questions, Jan, very soon.
Yeah, I know. So to everybody, write some questions that you think are floating around in your space, or the peers that you talk to. What are the questions? I would love to read them too, because it's very exciting. And also, of course, your inputs. What do you guys think? What will happen? The things that need to be unveiled. And I think I wanted to say something for what. Or did you want to say something? Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt as much. I didn't want to wrap up the episode so far. It's not wrapping up the episode. I just wanted to add something. But.
Yeah, no, go ahead. From here, we're going to shift to a couple more games for the event.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So I think that's a good. Then you go to the fun part afterwards. Perfect. So my thoughts on all of this is, you've shown some stuff already on the last episode we went together, but you've very much changed the model and added a lot of things. But we also talked about the utilization and stuff like this. But now the difference is I actually went to the US. I was in San Francisco. I was in Michigan. And I've tested FSD 12.4.1. Episode still coming up, sadly. But it was so interesting to see that. And also one thing that amazed me, because I always visited New York and the New York area because my family is also from there. And most of the time, I was a kid when I was there. So I didn't actually get a lot of things. But going to California and San Francisco especially, one thing I've noticed is that you have highways. And my European Roman road brain thought that, I can walk this distance. Of course I can't. It's a 10-minute drive, but a 40-minute or 50-minute walk or something like that. Because you have highways inside of the city, which is so unusual in Europe that it's insane. And or not insane. I didn't want to insult the great system you have, because it actually is now. It was always a curse, kind of. Not really, but it made you reliant on cars. That's what I mean. We have public transport in Germany, which is not good. I think the trains are stupid. The way they're always late. It's horrible. They're too expensive. You could fly. It's like if you can't compete with flying, it doesn't make sense actually. So the Swiss have great public transport. They're on time always. That's why German trains can't enter Switzerland. That's the reason. So something to note here. That's very important to know. So our train system is always praised in the US, but it's not true. It's not so true as you think. Try to get to Amsterdam from South Germany. It's very difficult to go there. Right. But what I wanted to say here is that you've prepared for this now, kind of, because you have this big highway, and you could have invested in public transport many, many years ago and for decades now. But this now makes a lot of sense, because the last miles also is still an issue in Europe. So if you solve this will have also an impact, and people will maybe don't use the public transport anymore because it's way more convenient to go by car. And that's a big one, I think. And highway driving is very easy for the FSD already. So city to city is actually no problem. And even as I've experienced, even small serpentines in San Francisco, going up there and driving around there over the Brooklyn Bridge, and behind that I'm not sure how the area is called when you go over the
Golden Gate Bridge.
The Golden Gate Bridge. I've just mispronounced.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to see that it's almost like Italy there, and you drive those small roads and it just worked.
Yeah.
And this was 3 dots. It was still supervised, so I need to touch. It had the nag still, so it was 12.3.6, I believe, and this thing even made it, and this was crazy to me. Like I was mind blown by that, and I think this will be a big one. So I think now it makes a lot of sense that you have this kind of infrastructure in the US with that technology now, and I think this will eliminate this kind of problem of public transport that you have. Yeah.
No, I think you're right. I think the mistakes that have been made over decades now suddenly will look less like mistakes. That infrastructure won't be stranded. In hindsight, it'll look like a very wise move for Americans to not have invested as much as Europeans did in the infrastructure.
Well, okay. I mean, the background is, of course, the Rockefellers. They wanted to sell oil, and
of course,
the business grew like this, and you focus on the oil industry as a focus there. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I think it's very good, and this is actually a big one there, and that's something I've experienced. It was interesting to notice that infrastructure is so different. So I didn't want to go like a long-winded answer here, but I just wanted to add that.
No, I think it's an important point, and it'll be interesting in Europe to see what the impact is on the train systems as autonomous vehicles become more prevalent, because people are going to find it a lot more convenient to get picked up at one door and be dropped off at another door without having to walk as much as they do perhaps now from their home to the train station first.
Yeah, and one scenario that I've made is that you don't own a car. You work in Switzerland, for example, because they have good train station and good public transport. I mean, then you get off from work and you need to go to buy something. And then you need to get groceries to your house. And then you need to, of course, you have your commutes, you have to do your runarounds, and then suddenly you have a Robotaxi and just put it there and it follows you around kind of, maybe with an idle fee, just standing around somewhere waiting for you. And then you just go home and have the problem solved of carrying 2-3 grocery bags. So,
with the beer in the car waiting for you.
That, I mean, if they don't show this feature now, I'm totally...
That's right.
That wouldn't work.
Yep. So... Speaking of that, given that the event is taking place, at 7 p.m. Pacific time, for us here in the Eastern United States, that's 10 p.m. It's going to be a little bit late, and for you, I guess it's nice and early in the morning.
Yeah.
But I've developed a couple of games because I figured that people, may need some help, staying awake. Yeah. So here's kind of a fun one. We all know of many people that are going to this event.
Yes.
And some of them are what I call Tesla royalty. So I came up with this royalty spotting game. So the event is going to be televised, and in the crowd you will see many faces. And if you see, for example, Alexander Mertz or Scott Walter, or others, you can play this game. Now, in order to win this game, it's not like bingo. You need more than one row. You need 2 rows to win this game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the row can be vertical, horizontal, or diagonal. Mm-hmm. In bingo, the center square is free. So King Elon is there in the middle. So that's a free one. I'm pretty sure you're going to see him. But everybody else, if you find them in the crowd, then you can mark them off on this card.
That's such a nice idea. And people will get in trouble when they just turn over the camera to the whole crowd and suddenly like, oh God, Alexander Mertz. I'm glad that this is not a drinking game, because then you would be drunk after one.
Well, we've got one camera coming up.
Camera pen. We've got
that one coming up. So yeah, this is more. Yeah. If you black out this entire card, there's a special prize for you on that. That would be impressive if you see all these people.
Yeah.
Now, there's
That
a
would
good
be nice to-
combination of Tesla people here. There's also some celebrities like Shaquille O'Neal, Steven Spielberg, Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And there's also some Tesla royalty within our own community.
Like Drake.
There you go. Great.
Yeah. No, of course. Amy and and Jeff Lutz, of course. Yeah. He got invited pretty early. Yeah.
And there's many more.
Is from Tesla, of course. Alexander Mertz is here. Yeah.
So feel free to, take this idea and make your own card, but this is one that could be fun to play.
Yeah, just screenshot this and open up maybe a note app or something, and then you can circle it around or X it out, stuff like this. So please feel free to make a screenshot now and think about a Cern while using this card.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, on the not so fun side for some of us, I created another game called the No-Go game. These are the Tesla not invited list.
Jeez, why is my name so big?
So I figured for this one, I put you front and center.
Good. Well,
I'm also
that
there.
Makes it hurt more even. That's good.
Yeah. So this one's a pretty difficult one to win because that would mean that these people need to show up to the event. So that they've either snuck in without an invite, or maybe they got an invite at the last minute. This would be a hard game to win if you got a row on this card.
Okay, I get it. Okay. Well, that would be good if I could sneak in. It would be a long flight, but I could try.
Yeah. For that to win, for you and I in that column, we would also need to see the governor of California and Brian Wang there. If you and I were to make it, so it'd be tough to win this one, right? And the chances of seeing Taylor Swift, Sam Altman, you, Jan LeCun of Meta, and Bill Gates there are probably also a long shot.
Yeah, that's true. I haven't seen Sam Altman and Bill Gates since ages. So they don't play golf anymore at my clubhouse.
Right. Yeah, I think Taylor Swift is probably the least likely one on that row.
Yeah. I think Sam Altman could come with his Königsegg, where he was spotted with this non-profit that he.
Yeah,
so funny.
He'd probably like that to be some kind of autonomous vehicle, so that could be a fun one to include. Yeah. So if you do see any of these people at the event, perhaps you have a pretty good shot, at that point to celebrate finding one of these folks.
So this one's a hard one.
This one's a tough one.
Yeah.
And then finally, we've got a really fun one that is a party game. I'm calling it Drink. I'm not suggesting that you drink, but I'm calling the game Drink. Anytime any of these words are said by Elon or anybody else presenting, feel free to partake.
Jeez.
Or Franz, pumps his fist, or if Elon dances, for example. If you play this game, the way to win this game, by the way, is only if you wake up the next morning not knowing what happened.
And then you find the Cern Basher card you've printed out. Yeah. Then you know the deal.
Yeah. Hopefully, I'm not causing myself any legal issues here from putting this in people's hands. But
no, I don't think so.
Either way,
it's funny. I think this one will be like, yeah. So this one really needs to be printed out, because all those things, I think, are pretty probable that somebody will say it. Especially, I think Elon will have 90% of this list probably.
All of these quotes, by the way, are things that Elon has said in the past.
I know. Yeah. Damn! I love you guys.
Yeah.
Naughty. Yeah. Absolutely. Those things.
There's a good chance he says it again. He does like to repeat himself.
Elon wears event T-shirt. I love this. It's so simple, but yeah. Right. This is a good one. Yeah.
I think there's a few on here that are unlikely to happen at this event.
Yeah.
Like the GFY comment is probably unlikely to happen.
Is Bob Iger there? We don't know.
Well, he's on the no-go list.
Oh yeah. So this would be a double one if somebody could get Bob Iger and the GFY. Yeah.
Yeah, you could put these bingo games together and kind of form a 4D bingo game. if you put all four together. Yeah. Anyway, I wanted folks to have some fun. I know not everybody got invited, and it needs to be fun for those of us that are watching it from home.
It's a very nice idea, and I will push in the live stream where we're at, of course, that we need to go through those, and I will have something prepared so I can really get into it, and we can count the score if everyone who's winning.
That's right. Now, I guess what I should have done is made different versions of the cards like they have in bingo, but in this case, I just have one. But
yeah, but let's see if it works. So everybody, make your screenshots, skip through the video, rewatch this video. That's the best thing you could do now, if you still have time. The clock is ticking. So yeah, Cern, it was so fun to go through all of this, but I wanted to ask you your closing thoughts on the Robotaxi event in general, what you found for yourself the most exciting thing. I mean, of course, the finances and stuff like this you want to hear, but yeah, for me, it's crazy to see this. It's a nice, really a revolution, actually. And people, it's interesting to see, especially witness this from abroad. You're in the US. For you, even FSD is normal. And I want to really, really emphasize this point. You are in the unique position of actually having access to this technology without this kind of red tape bureaucracy. I mean, you still can complain over there, but you can. I mean, we can complain over here,
right?
In the EU, there are some things that are maybe better than in the US, and many things. Innovation is one thing that is pretty much not apparent here, and you see that with like these new technologies that you have right there. And this is something I think where the US can be proud of, kind of. Also, I want to really emphasize this because it is unique. It's special. Even if FST didn't work so fine this time, you are commuting to work with this technology already, which is crazy. We have lane assist and lane keeping and Mercedes level 3 autonomy thing that never works. So, well, you know what I mean? So appreciate what you have there. It's amazing. Yeah. So now we have the event in front of us, and this is going to be like crazy. And I hope Germany wakes up and licenses FSD as fast as possible. No questions asked. VW should immediately do it. I mean,
they should.
Dangerous else. Because
then you make a very good point about how lucky we are, how fortunate we are, and I really hope it comes to Europe sooner rather than later. I think as it is already, it saves lives. It makes Tesla vehicles the safest vehicles on the road. I would also say too that I have the very latest version of FSD in my Cybertruck, right? Even the version yet that other Tesla vehicles don't have, 12.5.5. And I drove that about 200 and some miles this weekend on a trip from here to Orlando and back. And it's funny because it was absolutely flawless the whole time, except for when I pulled into my community off of the road and it made the turn and then just stopped. It's never made that mistake before. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was perfect until now. It just it got tired and it just stopped.
Maybe because you ran over a child. Cern.
Maybe.
Why? Oh,
maybe.
Didn't move.
It wasn't me that ran over the child. It was the Cybertruck.
It was Elon Musk directly. Right. No. But yeah, funny sometimes how it works. But those things can be ironed out, I think.
Yes. No, it's not a major issue, but it is amazing how good it is. The thing that I think after this Robotaxi event, after this unveiling event, the stock is going to react tomorrow in some way. And I just want to point out to people that when Apple unveiled the iPhone on January 9th, 2007, the stock actually did reasonably well afterwards. But some months later, it was actually lower than where it was trading that day.
Yeah.
People didn't understand the significance of what they saw. Since then, Apple stock is up 100 times since that date. When NVIDIA delivered the first AI supercomputer to OpenAI, and by the way, Elon was there when that happened, in August of 2016, NVIDIA's stock also had a lot of bumps along the way. Its stock now is up 80 times where it was. Okay. And the last example is with Tesla itself. They unveiled the Model 3 on March 31st, 2016. By December, the stock was 22% lower. Okay. And in hindsight, we all know now that the Model 3 was the key product for Tesla that's helped make Tesla what it is today.
Yeah.
Since then, since that March date, not the December low, the stock is up 16 times. So my message is, no matter what happens tomorrow with the stock, let's assume the stock is selling off for whatever reason, because people are disappointed that they didn't see what they wanted Elon
Time
to
travel.
talk about. My point is that none of that matters. That what we're going to see is likely to be a groundbreaking technology that still has a ways to go to improve.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the iPhone has improved over the years, just like NVIDIA's chips have improved over the years. The clock never stops on that. The improvement continues. And I think that this is likely to prove to be, in hindsight, one of those groundbreaking events. And no matter what the stock does, that is not the ultimate test how the stock performs the next day. The ultimate test is how the stock performs over the coming years as Tesla rolls out this technology and develops a business around it.
Yeah.
So, enjoy the event and don't worry about what happens to the stock price tomorrow. It's not indicative of anything.
Yeah.
Now, if the stock goes up 50% tomorrow, I still don't think that's indicative of much. What matters is where the stock is, 5, 10, 20 years from now.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Small disclaimer here, no financial advice.
That's
very
right.
important because
Yep.
everybody makes its own decisions, but I totally agree. It's like I always experience the technology of Tesla every day, and I wish competitors would be there, but it's strange to also see that you cannot operate on the level, and you see that that they have leapfrogged already in so many core technologies over the years. Now we are maybe a few months ago, I would say it's even like maybe they were 8 years ahead. Now I would say they're 12 years ahead, and suddenly they're 15 years ahead. It goes goes on and goes on. It's pretty significant what's happening here, and also saving lives is a big one there. That this technology will help even if you don't have FSD on your car, that you cannot crash a Tesla at some point. That it's just like your steering wheel, and when you have steer-by-wire in the cars, it just overrides, and then the wheels just turn and bring you into the direction of safety. And I think this will be something that's very important, that they will be even safer than now, but they are already operating in shadow mode right now, so they already calculate what would the FSD system do now, and calculate if something is off on the route, why did the person do that now, and stuff like this. So the system learns also from this, and I think this one, it's so crazy. This technology is so advanced, and that's what I love about Tesla. That's for me the same when I saw from SpaceX those 2 boosters land.
Mm-hmm.
And these 2 boosters made that we have Starlink right now, because it drove down the price, and now we have a accessible product that you could buy globally, that you have internet access even if you are in a country where it's restricted and internet is surveilled and stuff like this. So not even that, if you go to the mountains, you can now enjoy Starlink on the go, kind of, because you have Starlink Mini. And I mean, this is just amazing to me. And the synergies that are about to happen in the next coming of years with Starlink, it's going to be mind-blowing, because you need those core technologies to morph them together into huge new product category almost. And I think it's going to be crazy. It's mobility, energy, net, communication. What the hell? It's amazing.
And then you add labor in there with humanoid bots.
Exactly.
And that changes everything again. To your point a minute ago about FSD being so safe and maybe crash-proofing vehicles.
Yep.
If that's the case, then regulators should be mandating that FSD be included, much like they mandate seatbelt or airbag use.
Yeah.
if you develop such a useful technology that makes vehicles virtually crash-proof, we would be foolish not to include that in every
Absolutely.
single vehicle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. So everybody enjoy the We Robot event. Don't eat too much McDonald's, I hope. let's just see what McDonald's has to offer now in the event, or if it's just a marketing thing. That's something I need to take a look at. But overall, I'm very hyped for the event. And yeah, thank you very much, Cern, for being here. Also a lengthy episode, but I love that. So thank you very much to the audience for watching. Thank you, Cern, for being here. And of course, follow Cern on all of his socials. He's great.
Thank you, Jan. The only social I have is X, and so that's the place to follow me.
Exactly.
And thank you very much for having me on your channel. It's been great.
Yeah, and to the audience, there's only one last thing to say, and that's goodbye, everybody, and have fun with the We Robot event.
Wasn't this episode awesome? Let's accelerate the pace of innovation by subscribing to TeslaFix. It is my absolute favorite channel on the whole interwebs.